Hi everyone, and welcome to another GDL for Google Drive. And today we are going to walk through one of our quick starts. We've been doing all of these for each of the different languages. Today we're going to look at our iOS application, which is our quick start for Objective-C. This is a really simple iPhone app that uses the camera or the photo library on the phone to allow the user to select a picture and upload it into Google Drive. Most of these quick starts we've been trying to keep down to about 5 minutes. This one I timed, honestly, it's a little bit longer than 5 minutes. I think the quickest I did this one was about 8 minutes. That was moving at a pretty quick pace. Today I'll probably slow it down a little bit just so we can explain what's going on at each step. But for the most part, it is pretty easy to get going. And it's a pretty good example to show you how you can start to use the Drive SDK on iOS and in your iPhone and iPad apps. So I want to switch over and just take a look at the webpage on developers.google.com. You can see here we have the quick start guide, and you're all encouraged to try this on your own. It does require XCode. I think I'm using 4.4, but so long as you have a Google Drive account and XCode, you pretty much can just follow along at your own pace, or try to keep up if you can. So the first thing we need to do is enable the Drive SDK, and I'm going to go over to our APIs console. And I already have a bunch of projects, but I'm going to go create a new one. I'll call this our GDL iOS project. And we need to enable the Drive API, which we'll find down here, turn that on. And more importantly, set up our API access. This step is actually a little bit confusing for iOS developers because there is a step in here which is a little bit misleading. So we'll just say this is our GDL demo. I'll skip the logo and homepage URL for now. But we're going to select this installed application setting here. So this is, it is a native app that runs on iOS. Here's the confusing part, though. This iOS option, basically you don't want to use this. This is for basically for a feature that doesn't exist yet, or I don't even know if it ever will. But for those who have done Android development, you've noticed some changes to how we do OAuth on Android, which is why there's a specific option for Android, because things are a little bit different. But for now, for iOS, we're just using a generic installed application, and we are going to create that, and we're all good. So I'm going to come back to this. We're going to need some of the values from here, specifically the client ID and the client secret, but we have a couple other things that we need to go do first. So we've done step one for enabling the Drive API. The next thing is we need to get the Google Client library. The instructions are here. Basically, it is really not much more than a copy and paste of this line. So right now we just have a little empty directory here. We'll go check that out. Life is pretty good. And while that's going, we're going to move on to step 3, which is create and configure an XCode project. So I have XCode here. I already did the create new project. Here's the wizard. And for this example, we're going to use a single view application as the template. It's just pretty easy that way. A little bit less work in order to get the sample running. But obviously, you're going to pick whichever template is appropriate for your application when you're doing this for real, or do everything from an empty project. So we'll enable that. We will say this is our GDL demo. And pretty much the rest of this is fine. Obviously, for a real application, we would want to fill this in and use proper package names. But for today, we're going to skip a lot of that. And let me just go back and we'll give it a home in here. So we have a nice empty project here. We do need to do a bit of work, though, in order to get this set up to use the library for the Google APIs. And this is a little bit of a lengthy process. It does involve copying a few files around. So we see here we created our SDK project, filled in our products and everything. Now we need to make sure that the API client is available to our project. And the easiest way to do that is just to drag this XCode project into our project here. So we'll do that. It's going to ask us to create a workspace. We'll just do that and just save that right here. But now we've brought in our source. For those who haven't used our API library yet on iOS, I would suggest going through the documentation for the library. There's actually about 3 different ways that you can go about using the library on iOS. One involves using copying in the source. That does require setting up some different build settings depending on whether or not you're using Arc or not. In this case, I opted for the approach which is using the static library, and it does require a little bit of extra work in order to do so, but for me it just felt like the best option. So we're going to go and move on with the rest of the steps here. So we've added it in. We do need to update our build settings. So we're going to use this link, update the libraries that we need for our project. So we'll go in here and we'll do a quick search for let's see, where is our setting here? I'll cheat a little bit. Switch over to here, and we need to add some dependencies. So one is, this is the static library produced by the API library. I'm going to add that, but then we're going to add a few more, and just make sure I remember which ones. So we need security, system configuration, and mobile core services. Let's see. So just so you know, the security and system configuration are required by the client library. Mobile core services we're just including in this demo, mostly just to get access to the camera. There's some library classes in there that are useful for the image picker. So we have those. We do need to update our link flags. This is a step that is required by the client library. Oops, this is the, okay, other linker flags. All right. Oh, there we go. I got that. Really wanted to add these to both of them, but for now, since I clicked on the wrong one, we'll just add it here in both. Normally we just add this for both versions. And the last thing we need to do, actually not the last thing, we still got a couple more steps. We do need to copy over this one resource file from our project. So if you go here, we should be able to find in our touch library this resource file. We are going to copy this over into our supporting files. Then one more thing, or really 2 more things, is basically making the headers available and then copying over the Drive specific services. So we will add to our user header search path, go back to our build settings. Over here. And so we're going to go up, look into here just to get our path. There we go. That gives us a nice search path for all of our headers. Make sure this is recursive. And number 8 is making sure GTL drive and GTL drive sources is copied over to our project. So that you can find if you go into oh, that's actually not in the workspace here, but I can go into services, drive, generated, and we need these first two files, and we will drag them into here. And we should be pretty good. So it's a little bit of work. A lot of this is really just how the library for Objective-C is built. It does require a little bit of setup work, but once you've done that, you've done it a few times for different projects, it actually turns out not to be all that difficult. It's just a lot of steps. But at that point, we do have an empty project set up at this point that we could use for writing our app. This next step is really just focusing on the sample itself. So we have two sources here. We're just going to copy and paste these over. First is our header file. We are just going to copy and paste that in and do the same thing for the actual implementation. So don't worry too much about what the content of this file is right now. We're actually going to go, once we have this working, walk through a couple of the critical sections related to OAuth and the Drive API to see what they're doing. Because this is generic, there's a couple placeholder values that we do need to fill in here, mostly our client ID and our client secret. And these go back to what we created earlier in the APIs console. So we're going to copy this over and replace our client ID. And one more with our client secret. And I'm going to make one other change that's not necessary for most people, but I'm just going to change this keychain item name, mostly because I have another version of this app running and I have some saved credentials in there. So we'll just make this, we'll just add that just to give us a unique namespace in the keychain. And if all goes well, and if I didn't make any mistakes, which is quite possible that I did, we should be able to run this on our iPhone simulator. One thing is, because this application uses the image picker and the camera, on the simulators you don't actually have a camera available to you. So it does require that your whatever simulated device you're using, that you have some images saved in the photo library. And because of some UI differences between how iOS, the UI standards on iPhone versus an iPad, the way the image picker is being used in this way is not actually compatible with the iPad simulator. So you actually see this alert message in here that if you are on an iPad on a simulator and it's using the image picker, it's just not going to work. So make sure if you are running this at home or at work that you do switch to using the iPhone simulator for this. So hopefully, if everything went well, oh, I did make a mistake somewhere here. And what did I do wrong? All right, I'm not entirely sure which step I screwed up on. I am going to cheat slightly and show you this in another window because I did set this up earlier, and rather than doing live debugging, I would just rather show you the actual result. So I am going to go over to, let's run this. And the nice thing is, it's already authenticated. I'll go back and I'll change the keychain name again. But you can see here, we have the image picker. These are just some pictures of my kittens. That is Oliver. I'm going to upload. And you could ignore this debug message. But in just a moment, this should actually upload in Drive, and we'll get a little confirmation message that everything worked just fine. I'm particularly slow today for some reason, but the file was saved, and if you go back here, we can see the file ID for that file. I'm going to do one thing here. I'm going to just stop this and just change this keychain item name again, just to show the auth experience. So let's just change this to GDL. We'll run. And this time what we should see is a sign-up form. So this is our login form. We can go in here, and we'll just use one of my test accounts. Oops. Actually, let's use a different one. I have far too many accounts. All right, one last time here. I have no idea why I'm having such a difficult time today. There we go. Probably help if I use the right account. There we go. So we have our permission screen. This is Drive Quick Start, wants our email address, and our Drive files will allow access. And now we're back to where we are. And the way this app is written, it does basically store the refresh token in the keychain so that the next time the user comes along and uses their app, they don't have to enter in their username and their password. So let's actually just go back and look at a little bit of the code here. There's only a couple parts that are important for working with Drive. The one first is the OAuth, and the second is uploading the file itself. So let's see if I can, I don't know if I can zoom in here a little bit. So first here is this bit of code here where we're initializing our client. And this is basically on when the app is loading, the first thing we want to do is just check, did this user ever log in before? And so what we are using is, this is the auth controller. This is from our Google Toolkit for Mac, the OAuth controller. And we're just checking to see whether or not we have something in the keychain for this particular client. If we do, great, you can save that authorization, use it to access the API. Later on, we're going to check, and that's going to determine whether or not we show the authorization screen or jump right back into the application. So you can actually see that here when we're building the view is a check to see if we're authorized. That call, I'll show you in a sec, but basically if we're not, we're going to create an auth controller, push it onto the view stack, and then go through the authorization flow. The nice thing is authorization with the iOS library, the Objective-C library rather, is really simple. All the UI work is actually just built into the library, so all you really need to do is create the controller, push it onto the stack, and just wait for it to complete. So let's look at how we actually create the controller. This is this code block right here. Basically, we just create and initialize. And here we just give it a couple bits of information, mostly the scope. In this case, we're asking for Drive. It does include the email scope automatically, unless you override that. But again, just our client ID, our secret from our API console project, an item, basically the project name or app name for storing the refresh token in the keychain, and then obviously the delegators and callbacks for what happens when this actually completes. That's pretty much it for authentication. Pretty simple. You can look at the full source for more details. The other interesting part is how do you actually upload to Drive? That is fairly easy. This is this upload photo method in here. And you can just see what's going on here. First thing is we're just creating a file name just by taking a quick start uploaded file with a current timestamp formatted as a human readable string. Create a file, set the title, the description, and the MIME type. In this case, we're uploading as PNGs. we do need to take the image that we got from the image picker and convert that into data that we can upload. So we just get the PNG representation, use the upload parameters to give it the data. So you can see upload with data, that's the PNG. MIME type is image PNG, of course. And then the last thing is we actually just need to build a query and execute it. So it's a GTL drive query. The insert method is query for files, insert with object, very long name, but basically it's upload a file. In short, we give it the data, log with the metadata, which is the title and description. Execute, and our completion handler doesn't really do all that much other than just change our status message from waiting to done and logs out the actual file ID. And of course, if there is an error, you want to handle those conditions gracefully and so on. The rest of the code in here is mostly just plumbing for the UI, wait indicator, an alert message, working with the photo picker for iOS. But really, the key parts to focus on for working with Drive are the sections around creating the auth controller and the sections for uploading a photo. So that's it. I'm not entirely sure where in the quick start I didn't get quite right in this new project. I'll try to figure it out later, but not to take up too much time on today's broadcast. We're just going to leave it as is, but I do encourage people to try it out if you are interested in using the Drive SDK on iOS. Hopefully this is a valuable example. If there are other things that you would like us to do in these examples, other concepts, certainly reach out to us. One thing that's really important, and this is a great resource for everyone who is watching or may watch this in the future, is we do have a new community on Google+. This is our official Google Drive developers community, so you can find it if you just search communities for Google Drive developers. You should find it. You're all welcome to join. We're very active there. It's got a surprising number of people already. It's only been up for a few days, I think since Friday. But everyone is encouraged to join and participate. Let us know what you're working on. If you have any particular great tips or tricks to share, post them. Feature requests in the APIs. Would love to hear about them. One thing is, it is not a general forum for discussing, Drive features. It is really focused on the SDK and topics that are of interest to developers building on Google Drive. But really look forward to seeing people join up, and it's up to you guys to make sure that is a healthy and vibrant community. We'll certainly post some interesting stuff ourselves, but really it's an opportunity for you guys to speak up and let us know what's important to you. So that's it for today. Again, hopefully you found this helpful. And if you do have any feedback, you can find us on Stack Overflow or in the new Google Plus community. Well, thanks.